Welcome to another edition of Geopolitics and Empire. Again, you can see the scenery is different because I'm not in my lair, my HQ. I'm here on the ground at Derek Brose's People's Reset in Morelia, Michoacan, narco territory, with John Manley. So I had him on my TNT show, I think at least once.
Twice. Two or three times, really.
Two or three times.
Once with Jordan, wasn't it?
Right,
with the cover artist.
Your artist. He does fantastic work. And this isn't my copy. I got mine at home. You sent me a copy of your first book, Much Ado About Corona, a dystopian love story. I think I told you before, I'm not much for fiction. I've been reading a lot of nonfiction, but after reading your book, I fell back into fiction. And then you've got a new one, the Metaverse Trilogy, book 1.0, All the Humans Are Sleeping, which, thank you for giving me a copy. I'll be reading this. But if you want to just for real quick, for people who are not aware of your first book, if you want to just tell us about that before we get into your new one.
Yeah, this one was totally far-fetched because it took place just after the whole world decided there was some super virus out there, and they convinced everybody to go into their homes. So it was only something would happen in a fictional story. I mean, that's the thing. This book would have been considered too far-fetched if I had wrote it before the COVID era. Mm-hmm. So, but it's not so much. I mean, the book to a large degree exposes the hoax and all that, because it was initially my anger to the hoax when the Prime Minister of Canada announced the first lockdown. I immediately realized this was not about controlling a virus, partly because I lean towards terrain theory anyways, but even if that wasn't the case, I knew these measures weren't going to do anything. And it was almost like historical fiction writer Stephen Pressfield, he often says, write about what makes you angry. And I was both anger and scared, because I saw where this was going. So I decided I would just write a little short story, and it turned into a 500-page novel. But it's not so much about exposing the hoax as it was as about the people who were refusing to go along. And that's what the story is really about. It's kind of a celebration of that type of courage. And the story itself was meant to be so entertaining that even if you cared nothing about the COVID stuff, or if you're sick to death of hearing about COVID, it was a very human story about people just being brave and not going along with the herd and having a really fun time doing it and having a really hard time doing it, because it's an adventure.
Yeah, and I get books sent to me physically, digitally, plugs for potential guests, and I have to tell you in the beginning, I got the book and I've got no idea what to think about it, and for me, it's like a modern day classic. It was entertaining. It was reliving COVID 1984 in many ways. It's siding with dissidents. It's getting angry with some of the enforcers that are detailed in the book, and beyond. And so again, for me, I was just talking with on the previous podcast with Dan Aston Gregory, and we were talking about we don't have heroes anymore, like we used to read about, and talking about, musicians like Five Times August, who in the field of music became a hero. In the field of literature, I'll put John Manley as one of our heroes, getting the word out. So, I highly recommend the book, and especially carrying around the physical, so you can irritate some of our normie friends.
I've had people reading this in public and get accosted. I had one guy in Denmark, he was reading it in the park with the playground with the kids, and someone came up, so what are you reading, and why would you be reading such a book like that? There's children around.
I took it with me to Croatia. I sent you a photo. I put it on the beach in Dalmatia. And before getting to your new book, I don't want to forget, what would you say COVID 1984 was all about?
That's a tricky one. I think they had different objectives, and they didn't know what. I think, to a large degree, they're rolling dice. And I don't think, sometimes I wonder if they're just so psychopathic, they're doing it for fun. And there's a part of me that wonders that. Part of me wonders if they were hoping it would work, but if it didn't, they still kind of won, because they already had us oppressed, and they just upped the oppression by 10 times. So when it came back to what we called normal, everyone's kind of relaxed and was okay with the previous level of oppression. I mean, but I don't even think they succeeded that much because it awoke a lot of people, and a lot of people can't go back. So, but if it was, I think if they could have had it their way, it would have just been total world domination. I don't know why they want that. That's
well, I mean, I think there are. Was that from Batman, Michael Caine? There are some men that just want to see the world burn, and there's a few men I think that would love to own the world. And I think it's a good segue, judging by the theme. Corona for me was a lot of technocracy. I view it as, from my view, I said this in March of 2020, that it was about bringing in world algocracy, ruled by algorithm. And so
algocracy, not oligarchy.
Yeah, right. So algocracy, because some of the existentialists like Nick Bostrom talk about we need to have a world government surveillance state run by AI, and he calls it algocracy. So, I view it synonymous as technocracy, algocracy. And so you're talking about in your new book, so I haven't read it yet, the Metaverse, All the Humans Are Sleeping. So tell us about you were going to call it Brave New World, right?
No, Brave New World's the sequel to this one.
Oh, so that's not out yet.
No, I'm afraid I was actually about halfway through completing it. I started writing this one 20 years ago. It was a novella I actually published back before Kindle.
Okay.
It was a 20,000 word novella. And I thought, I was about halfway through Brave New Normal, and I thought, I just need a little break. Also because my wife had died after this was published. And the sequel, you remember the characters of Vince and Stephanie, that they actually do get married in the second one. I was kind of holding me up that part. It was a little difficult. But anyways, I had this 20,000 word story. I thought I'll just publish this. I don't know. It was a 99 cents Kindle book just to keep people going until I get the sequel out. Because the number one hate mail I get for this book is, where's part 2? Especially, I mean, the story completes itself, as you know, but it has a little cliffhanger and opens a new. So I thought I would just finish this 20,000 word story. It would take me, I just got to polish it up. I've been working on it for 20 years. And once I sat down with it, I just started expanding. It took a whole year, and it went from 20,000 words to 65,000 full-length novel.
And what could you tell us about then the theme and what's covered?
This one's set 15 years in the future. It starts on a farm in southern Manitoba. Basically, the main character is a farmer who slowly has adapted. You ever seen Max Headroom?
No.
Remember Max? They always said in each episode in the movie, 15 minutes in the future or 15 seconds in the future. And that's kind of what this is, because it's just set, in the 15 years in the future when we're going to be hopefully living still. And we know we're going to have AI. We might have robots. I doubt it both would be so developed as they are right now. So in 15 years, I'm open to any possibility at this point. So one of the characters, he's rather anti-technology, but he finally relents and decides to allow robots to help working on the farm so the family doesn't go bankrupt. It's in a society where the Agenda 2035 or whatever has gone into full force. Everyone's been moved into large cities, except those who are willing to just kind of ostracize themselves on private property and farms. That's what he's done with his family. They got a large farm, and basically what happens is nuclear war. There's a few other things that work up to it. 5 billion people are killed off. The survivors are ushered into the North and South Poles, where the United Nations has prepared underground bunkers where they can offer to keep them safe under the ground while they wait for the nuclear winter-summer thing to clear up. But, if you don't want to be buried alive, we happen to be able to put implants in you and wire you into an metaverse virtual reality type setup where you can just kind of live in utopia in a bot with, tubes going into you to keep you alive, ventilator, catheters, you name it. And it's about the one man who refuses to do it out of everyone alive. He's moved up to northern Norway on a mountain with a greenhouse, with one robot and his daughter, and told to try to live it out. And it's about the struggle between dealing with the reality of this is how I think a better way to put it is, remember back when, you may have forgot, but there was this time when they said you couldn't go to the grocery store or movie theater or stuff unless you got the jab.
Right.
But they weren't technically forcing you to get the jab. they were just making life really hard for you if you didn't. And that was kind of the setup I had, it because it's that question of coercion versus just, it's not, well, this is coercion, but it's not forcing. So you just blow up the world and then say, hey, if you don't like this, we have a nice metaverse situation. We just put some implants in your head while you're in. And it's a good way to kill off the rest of the human race, and they won't reproduce, and the planet's saved from us horrible human beings.
I mean, yeah, you touch on a lot of the themes that I'm concerned with. I feel in many ways we're already halfway there in terms of being wired up. It's just not as visible, you know, people with their phones and social media and Internet of Things. You know, I can't believe, you know, I visit people, they have their Alexas and Google Echoes, and I mean, you name it. And so just
the rate of adoption is scary.
Do you see it? It's moving quickly.
I think it is. I mean, I personally, I still don't own an iPhone. I don't have a smartphone, and I partly because I found it annoying. You know,
Yeah.
I tried for a little while, and it just didn't serve me as far as, you know, like writing big books like this is very difficult, and the less distractions I have, and I easily can go off on tangents. So, but no, I find it very concerning that we're seeing the effect on children, where it's like trying to figure out a way to deal with, it's like constant dopamine hits, and an environment that we never had. Like I had like 27 TV channels, and they were all showing repeats. So I don't know. I'm concerned that, and then people kind of, I think, gaslight themselves a bit about, you know, like the power these devices are having over them, and how often they're checking them, and so forth. And then it almost becomes an extension where, you know, the next logical case is, well, you know, it's kind of inconvenient always having to lose my phone or take it out of my pocket. If I could just have an implant that allowed me to, you know, it's not going to take much to get people there.
So if it came to that, would you be the farmer with a robot on the farm?
I suspect so. I suspect I do a better job than the character does there. He does struggle a lot more than me, but I don't know. I mean, his wife, and that was actually part of the other reason I dealt with the book. His wife dies in the war at the beginning. The war only lasts 6 days, you know. It's so if you take enough away from people, I don't know. It's a hard question. I deal with that a lot in the story, that, you know, where death may be the most realistic option, and it's better than being a slave. Like, I don't know, would you prefer to just be killed, or would you rather live in a vod of fake amniotic fluid with tubes going into your whole body?
No, that never. I'd prefer to go out. I always think of Young Guns 2, Kiefer Sutherland's John Bon Jovi, Blaze of Glory, right? Okay. Go down in a blaze of glory. It reminds me a bit. I've always loved sci-fi apocalyptic stuff, from the video games to the movies to the books. I'm thinking
it's a funny human.
I love that the video game Fallout is very reminiscent of parts of this, because it's post-apocalypse with robots and farms. And then Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I first read, fantastic book, and I think they did a good job with Viggo Mortensen putting it on screen. Was that an influence? Or did you?
No, I've never seen it. No.
Okay, so you never. Oh.
Yeah, I gotta do that one.
All right, because in one of the opening scenes, Viggo is with his wife and son, and it seems like it doesn't say what happened, but it seemed to have been a nuclear winter, and she can't take it anymore, and she just walks right into the fallout. But and then other themes. So for me, this touches on a lot. This Great Reset stuff, the technocracy that's going on right now, digital IDs, World Economic Forum, all this sort of stuff. How do you see all of that, and how successful they're being? I mean, up in Canada, you guys have Trudeau apparently stepping down, and you've got Mark Carney, the consummate Davos man, which I call him likely to come in and continue steering the ship forward towards dystopia. So your thoughts regarding where we're at with all that?
It's a tricky one, because I think they're scared that we have access to so much technology. I think the technology thing's both ways. I mean, there was a prominent theory that a lot of what's triggered COVID 1984 was they realized we were so able to distribute information that like we never could before. The playing field has become very level. Actually, it's becoming unlevel because more people don't want the mainstream media. But one of the places I think is the weakest, and why because originally I was people were calling me a journalist back when COVID 1984 came out, because I was one of the first websites that was dedicated. I think I was the first website that was dedicated to calling that a hoax right from the beginning, because there was a lot of people who were kind of I understand it was, and it's so scary what they were trying to do. To acknowledge what happened is to acknowledge how evil the people at the very top, or maybe I don't know, it's the people, it's questionable. I mean, most of the people at the bottom are just kind of, they were victims as much as most people, I think, to some degree. But I think they're very concerned about the power, or it's possible they're not concerned. Maybe they like the game. They don't want the odds to be so unequal. There's some possibility. If you try to think of this from some kind of grander metaphysical point of view, I mean, this makes us better people. The darkness that, I've changed a lot in the last 4 years. I'm sure your life is unrecognizable. So, it's like, I don't know, maybe the devil is our best friend in some ways, because he makes us stronger, braver, more caring, more, wiser.
Right. That's that principle going back of, being sharpened by these difficult situations. The writing process, I'm on your email list, and I enjoy your newsletter, and a lot of fun stuff goes on there. The writing process, I'm interested as well, and for both books, I guess, the writing process of putting together such a high quality work, just whatever you can.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. Because a lot of people think it's like, I hear so many people, because there's probably a lot of people who want to write stuff, and I really encourage, I think we need more in the fiction realm. Because I think the way the other side has so much power is because they control most of the entertainment. I mean, we're winning, I think, on the, the nonfiction, news, and I'm not sure how to categorize it, but you know what I'm saying. But they are still dominating, I think, in the
fiction space,
whether it's novels or, more specifically TV shows and movies. That's where the messages go. And I mean, in a lot of ways, nonfiction is really good for communicating facts. And I think fiction has a little upper hand on communicating truth, because it's almost a feeling, and it's more emotionally rich.
I've seen, in many ways, people talk a lot about predictive programming, where I feel like through fiction, the elites have put out all the Hunger Games and Maze Runners and all these sci-fi movies, 1984, as a way to acclimate us, prepare the ground for them actually implementing that. And when they do implement it, it's a trick where people think they've already been programmed to think, oh no, that only happens in fiction, not in the real world. And so when it actually happens, that's when they say, oh no, that's conspiracy theory. That only happens, in the Maze Hunger Games movie. That's kind of the feel that I get. So I think that goes to your point that fiction is very powerful, no? For programming or deprogramming.
Yeah, I mean, that was a challenge with this book, was whether I was going to make it too detached. Like the Hunger Games is a good example of freedom versus tyranny, but it's such an alternative world that
it's hard to relate to.
It becomes like a fantasy. And that was the tricky thing when I did Much Ado About Corona, because this is our world. It is, I'm actually going to be changing it on the edition. It's not a dystopian love story, because dystopian describes a fictional world, what's it called? Unpleasant world. But this ended up, by the time I finished writing it, it was historically accurate. It's a historical fiction. So, I don't, but as far as the writing goes, let's talk about that. I've changed my style a bit, but one thing I think people need to realize is it's like, this isn't something I write in one draft. It takes rewrites and rewrites. Much Ado About Corona took over 1,000 hours as my first novel. I don't know how long this guy took, because I've been writing it for 20 years, but I'm sure it was at least 500. It's much shorter, though. So I think people got to realize the first draft always looks a mess. And that's just, if you got something down, that's amazing. But one technique I've changed a lot, and I learned this from Dean Koontz. This is one of the world's most successful novelists. And he's largely on our side too, because he just despises government. Like, all the money from his novels, that guy makes $25 million a year in royalties from his novels. And he set up his own charity for them because he didn't trust any charities. He didn't want to give any to government. And all the money goes towards funding this program he has that creates service dogs for children who have disabilities. So anyways, he donates millions.
Someone can fact check me. I'm not sure if this is correct. I think it was Koontz who, during COVID, someone pointed out that one of his books that was published in the 90s spoke about like a Chinese bioweapon or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of eerie, you know?
Yeah. I wish he would speak out more. I know he's probably totally on our side, but you know, he got his stuff. But anyways, one of the techniques he used, and I loved it, was because when I wrote Much Ado About Corona, it was initially I just wrote the whole first draft. And actually I wrote most of the sequel and the third part. And then I went back and I rewrote the whole thing and rewrote. And that was a very difficult way to do it. Now what I do, and it's largely what I did with all the extra stuff and all the humans are sleeping, is I'll write one draft of a chapter. I'll write one chapter, and then I'll go back to that chapter and I'll keep rewriting it until I'm happy with it. And I find by the time I've done that 10 times, the chapter 2 just spits itself out because my brain has fully processed chapter 1. So that is a technique that works for me. I don't know if it would work for everyone because I don't outline. Like, I don't sit there and outline the whole story. I have no idea how it's going to end.
So it's kind of as you go.
Yeah.
And I often thought, in general, of writing, but as well as reading Much Ado, you have to have like keep a flow chart of you create these personalities and characters, and they have some backstory, and you kind of have to keep it all. No. I mean, it's not easy. Right?
No, yeah. There's a lot of note taking, and there was technically, so Much Ado About Corona gets more complex in a fun way, I think, by the end, where things that didn't seem to be significant at the beginning all start winding together. And I can't say any of them because there's so many spoilers in that book. There's surprises. But a lot of that came about too. Like, you may remember the scene on the ice with the hockey game and how that ended. That scene, so many people tell me, is their favorite scene in the book. And that scene, when I originally read it, I thought, this is too far-fetched. No one's going to believe it. And so what I had to do was keep rewriting everything that happened up to that to set it up so that when they got to that scene, it became believable. Just by changing things about the characters, setting stuff up specifically. So there's a lot of that. And if you ever reread this book, knowing how it ends, you'll see all the foreshadowing for so many things. You'll be like, oh my goodness, he said that there. There's like Easter eggs that just jump out at you when you know how the story ends. And you can't do that with 2 drafts.
So going forward, what do you think life's going to be like in this post-corona world? I was just reading yesterday, bird flu, right? They're throwing they're
trying that again?
In Russia, they're calling poultry. And I think a week or two ago, 100,000 ducks somewhere in the U.S. So it's they haven't let up. And the cover, Jordan Peterson, right? Is this also Jordan Peterson?
No, I wish it was Jordan Peterson.
His work.
That would sure help my sales. Yeah, no, Jordan Henderson. Yeah, and that's what I meant. And that literally is Jordan Henderson.
Oh, really? Yeah. So he paints this is very Matrix-like, and again, Matrix for me is one of those predictive programmings where I think they actually want to get us to a place like that. During COVID, you read that Microsoft patent 060606 about linking our bodies to the cloud and cryptocurrency and generate. That's very reminiscent. It's like a precursor to this Endgame and Corporate Commander Klaus Schwab talking about we're going to merge man with machine, iron with clay, if to use biblical terms. Yeah. But I don't think. I think it's going to be nearly impossible to do that. But
from a biological point of view,
technical, biological, but yeah, you just sort of how do you see the road ahead for the world? In Canada, in terms of the new normal that we're living now. Again, they want to bring back COVID 2.0. with the bird flu, call meat, right? Because they don't want us to be eating meat to be strong. And then, of course, as you mentioned, with the smartphones and this metaverse coming in.
And then maybe an over dependency on AI is another concern.
And possibly a third world war, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the last resort, but it's it's funny because if they really just wanted to wipe us all out, I think they could probably just do it. It's like, you ever see a cat with a mouse and they just don't want to just eat the thing? They play with it a lot, and sometimes they won't even kill it. So I try not to psychoanalyze psychopaths too much because it's disturbing. But my feeling generally, I have a lot of faith in humans, and that's a lot of what gets covered in that story, especially from, ironically, the point of view of the robot. The robot ended up becoming most people's favorite character in the story because his admiration for humans. And it's almost, he becomes like a reflection of what we really are, even though we are trying to become him. It's almost like, in some ways, humans feel they want to change places with technology. And then, because this is different than the Matrix. Like in the Matrix, the robots take over the world and want to wipe out humanity. In this one, humanity is almost trying to wipe out itself, and the robots are trying to take care of them. Because the robots have envy the humans to some degree. So personally, I think human nature will prevail. And I think in a lot of ways, like I've even had dealing this with young people I know that where they have these addictions to being online constantly, whether it's social media or video games or so forth. And actually, I think at the conference here, a good person who knows a lot about that is Lainey Liberty. Yeah. Very wise, actually. That it's almost like you have to have faith that they're human enough that this isn't going to be really attractive to them, and that you don't even have to fight with them about it. You just have to give them the alternatives. And I think, the best thing we can do for almost everyone is just try to live our own life to the fullest, do what we really want. Like, that's why I wrote these books. I wrote this book, like, I had COVID-19. I've been writing rough drafts of novels for like 20 years. I have like stuff in a fire safe, handwritten, the stacks of it. And when this happened, one of the reasons I wrote it was because I wanted to do my part to try to stop it and make people aware. The other was, I didn't want to die without having done a book. I didn't know if I was going to end up in a concentration camp, a forced injection, dragged off somewhere. So I think in a lot of ways, I heard two guys talking about this the other day. They were saying, we're all awake. We've taken the red pill, but I'm worried about all my neighbors and stuff. I don't worry about them. Go live your life to the fullest. Don't try to convert them or change them. Just go do amazing things with your life and show how it is to be a real human being instead of a cyborg. And I just don't see us. I mean, some people are going to join the Boer collective and whatever, but some people are going to go get a shot and get themselves killed. I think about 10 million people did that already, and it's sad, but it's nothing I can do about it. And I think the best thing we can do is just really just try to be full human beings.
I think that's a strong point, and I've been thinking and discussing that, where that's actually a better way to wake people up, is not, coming to them with the documents and trying to convert them, but living an amazing life. And they're going to be like, previously they thought you were that weird conspiracy guy, and now they see you and you're like, physically fit, financially successful, happy, joyful. Those are just examples, right? And so, then they'll be thinking, okay, he's not so crazy. Okay, what's going on there, right?
Yeah, and and also you can have a happy family. Yeah. I mean, that's that's abnormal now.
I think that's the most important.
Yeah, you can have a community, friends, people you like. And so if they see you having all that, and they're sitting there stuck with their technology in a isolated situation, contemplating whether they need to have a sex change and implants wired into their brain. I mean, it's like, I don't think the other side has that potential. And then, there's all the other issues with, this technological implants. I mean, right now, the tests with the monkeys, all the monkeys end up with brain cancers, right. Horrible tumors that, you don't even have to be an animal rights activist to realize this is not something you do to a monkey. It's just, so though I'm not going to play hope that it's just biologically not possible, because there's, I didn't think AI would be developed as it is now. And I'm not against AI. I tried to be both sides. Like one of the robots in that story, he's just like he's like the secondary hero. So I never use AI to write anything, like as far as come up with stuff, but I do use AI. It's very helpful for research, especially with novels, because it's so many little tiny things. Like I really got into. You ever heard of Osseo drill? Cool device they use as paramedics if they ever have someone in a very unstable condition, or especially when they're putting them in helicopters where you can't get an IV into them very fast or very easily. They got this drill. You drill it right through the bone in their leg, and then you inject the medicine right into the bone marrow, and that will go right into their bloodstream. So I just had to use that in the novels. I wanted to do it in Much Ado About Corona, but I couldn't fit it in. So I did both. Like I used AI to help figure out some of the technical stuff. I actually had it reread it for me to make sure it was technically accurate. Then I still went to an actual registered nurse and had him read the whole book to, take it to the next level. So I still use AI for like the preliminary and then humans for the second. And I also find I'll run stuff past AI and say, what do you think of this chapter? And he gives prompts. He's like a first editor. He's not my last editor, but he's my first editor. It's like spell check. Who doesn't use spell check? You want to pay someone to do all your spell checking for you. It's going to be so.
That makes me think of, do you think there'll be a future where AI just takes over, whether it's podcasting, writing? I'm a Nick C.A. fan. I've been listening to some of his recent interviews, and he actually thought that AI was pretty good in creating lyrics and music. So he kind of didn't want to go down that path in the interview, but what he seemed to be saying was he was pessimistic that AI could have the capability, but it is hyped up at the moment, but I think it is a powerful tool. I call it automated intelligence. I think they're trying to make us think it's going to be like sentient, which I don't think it ever will. It's just like a software that can sift through information very quick. It seems like you're saying that we're going to hold strong and keep our humanity. And well,
I'm hoping it'll make us better, because I think humans aren't very good at we're not good at memorizing things. We're not good at sifting through things very quickly. We're not very good at calculations. What we're really good at is creativity, emotions, which I don't think we understand as much as we should. Because AI I don't think there's ever going to be artificial emotions. And we are very good at problem solving. So what I would kind of hope, and I see, and the other thing, we're not really good at mundane activities. So I hope, robots just eliminate all the mundane activities so we can do really high level stuff. But I think we're going to discover more what makes us human by getting rid of all the stuff that machines can do. Maybe we'll get into like really neat stuff like telepathy. I don't know, but I'm hoping it's going to make us more human, not less human. But it could go both ways, and that's just how you deal with it. Like, there's people who we connected through technology. I mean, we wouldn't be, but that's the thing. We connected through technology. You found me through the internet, and then we were like talking. You were sometimes in Croatia and Mexico, and I was in Canada. But now we're face to face here, and it was so cool because I didn't even know you were going to be here. And I had just got out of my hotel room with my wife, and I'm walking down the hall.
2 days ago, there was one morning where I literally, at that moment, walking out to go get coffee, and you were literally passing through the hall right in front of me. I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, but I've only been on the radio with you, and I've only heard your voice. But, and that's the thing. This is so much nicer. And in the fact that we decided to come to a place where it was, because we could have just watched the talks on YouTube. Well, maybe not YouTube, because I heard YouTube's already cut the feed.
Oh, feed, yeah.
Yeah, because Jason, I think he mentioned something about a jab.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it's
But I knew you were coming because you mentioned it in your email list. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
I didn't know you were.
And I did the same thing with my second wife. Now, as I mentioned, I just got married last week. But it was interesting because I met her online. She lives in the Netherlands. I was actually her client, and but it's like, I wasn't interested in, dating someone over Zoom. That's just ridiculous. So as soon as I decided I was very interested. Well, actually, I decided that within 5 minutes of meeting her online. But anyways, I finally just did. Back in December, I said, can I take you out to dinner? I'm in Canada. She's in Southern Netherlands. She's like, this this guy is crazy. What are you talking about? I said, well, can we compromise and we'll meet in Amsterdam? 2-hour train ride for her, 8-hour flight for me. And we did. And we spent the whole day together. And I left her an engagement pendant and under her Christmas tree. And when Christmas came around, I proposed to her and we got married last week. So it's like technology allowed that to happen, which never, ever. And I mean, we got to know each other through the internet and so forth. But it wasn't until we actually met in person physically that she wasn't sure about me. And like the first 5 seconds, she said she was like, oh, okay, this is great.
Okay, he's not crazy. All the humans are getting married.
We could use more marriages.
We could use more babies, more marriages, all the stuff that Cobra Commander Klaus and his company don't like. Well, John, again, I can't, and I don't do this if I don't mean it, so I can't recommend enough Much Ado, and I look forward to reading All the Humans Are Sleeping so people can get those books from you. And Jordan Henderson, his work is amazing too. I've been to his website. People can buy his artwork, right, and paintings through his
prints,
website.
T-shirts, jigsaw puzzles.
And people can sign up to your email. So you got your what's your website again?
Well, my main website is blazingpinecone.com, but with All the Humans Are Sleeping, if people want to go to allthehumans-are-sleeping.com, they can go there and they can sign up and get the audiobook version. The first, I think it's 2.5 hours of the audiobook version. It's the first audiobook I did. So
yeah, you recorded the voice, yeah?
Yeah, I did it myself at a studio that records for Penguin Canada. So it's very high quality. And I was very happy we're doing Much Ado now too. And the engineer has been fantastic. No resistance to the content. And so you can either get that or you can get the ebook, the first 1/3 of the ebook, because that's what I recommend people do. Is if you're not sure, just start reading, and if you can't, put it down. Though if you're like me and you like paperback, then you're just going to have to buy the paperback. But if you don't like the paperback, send it back to me and I'll give you a refund.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here in narco territory in Mexico. I know you got Moctezuma's Revenge. We all do, right?
Yeah.
You're recovered now. I went through it in 2010 when I first came to Mexico, so it's a rite of
It is a surprising experience.
Yeah.
That's when you start to feel like I don't want to be human, but you get through it and you realize, no, it made me I don't know if it made me a better person, but
it made you immune. Oh, but that's a whole nother conversation, terrain theory and all that. I get it. But, well, thanks for finally coming on Geopolitics and Empire.
No, thanks for having me. This has been great.